Hey friends, and welcome back to Sewing from Scratch. Today we are talking about sergers. We're going to delve into what a serger is, what it does, why you would want one, when you use one, and is it worth it? So it's just going to kind of be a really basic video to get you kind of informed so you can make a decision on whether or not you want to proceed with saving up for one or not. Do you guys see how dirty that is? Ooh, needs to be cleaned. Sergers need to be cleaned more than sewing machines. Like, it's filthy. So I put out a poll on my Instagram and you guys seem to want longer videos, and I'm assuming that means longer, more detailed videos, not just fluff, like not just me talking for half an hour, which I could totally do, but you'd all click out after a minute and a half. So I'm gonna try and make this video a little bit longer and talk to you about how to use a serger. So if you really don't know anything about serging, like if you have never heard of a serger before, that's how I'm going to talk in this video, as if you have never heard what a serger is before. So this is my serger. It is the only serger I have ever worked on. Technically I do own a second serger, but it's my serger cover stitch machine and I bought it for the cover stitch. Have never used it for serging. If you want to know more about that, I'll link the video below. But this is my serger. I bought it secondhand. I think I paid like, I want to say like $150 for it, $150 Canadian. It is a very basic model. It is a Singer Ultra Lock, but it has done me so well and it owes me nothing. I am very happy with this machine. That just goes to show that you don't need an expensive machine to get quality results. So sergers can also be called overlockers, and I will kind of use that interchangeably, although I do prefer the term serger. And I am going to be talking about my 4-thread overlocker because, again, that's what I have. I have never used a 3-thread overlocker. Just from what I see in Facebook groups and commenting and stuff like that, I would say that the 4-thread is probably the way to go. So what serging is finishing off the edge of a garment so that it doesn't fray. And this can be used in a lot of different ways. You might think, well, I can do that on my sewing machine. Yeah, exactly, you can. With woven fabrics, you do need to finish the edge on a lot of things, and your sewing machine will do just fine with that. You will want to use a zigzag stitch, but guess what? Your sewing machine might have an overlock stitch as well. So a serge stitch or a serge chain is the way that the 4 threads interact. So what you see on a serger is you have where your threads go here. Again, 4 threads for my 4-thread overlocker. And what these threads are for, this is for your left needle, this is for your right needle. So you have your 2 needles, and that's going to give you your added stability when you're constructing with your seams. And then your next threads on this side are your upper looper and your lower looper. And the loopers are down here inside, and don't be scared of the inside of your machine when you get it, or if you already have it. Your loopers are these guys in here. I'm gonna try and get in there for you. So that one with the whole, these two right here are your loopers. The upper one is the one higher up and the lower one is the lower one. And that's what's gonna help to tie your threads into your serge chain. And that's really all I'm going to talk about as far as that goes. Again, this is a very basic video, so we're not going to talk about tension discs or any of the insides. We're not even going to talk about differential. Right now we're just talking about what a serger is and what it does. This is what comes out of your machine. And when it's like this, it really just looks like a mess. But that's how it's supposed to look. So the seams that I'm talking about are the inside of a garment. The inside side seams specifically of a shirt is where you will find the biggest example of this. That kind of brings me to what a serger is used for. So you can use it to finish off raw edges, or you can use it for construction. And those are the two biggest uses, the two biggest uses. For construction, you're really only going to use it for knit garments. For constructing itself, you can use it for wovens. I don't, just because I like to have that extra seam allowance because there isn't a lot of ease in the fabric or give in the fabric. So when I'm constructing a woven garment, I like to do it on my regular sewing machine so that I have that seam allowance to move around. But the main time I use my serger, because I do use my serger a lot, probably more than my sewing machine, is for constructing knits. And you can do your whole garment on a serger. So you just put your two pieces of fabric together and feed it through. Now, the reason we can use a serger with knit fabrics more so than wovens is because knit fabrics don't fray. That fraying isn't going to go back into the stitching and make holes in your garment. So a lot of people use a serger for constructing their knit garments, and for me, I totally prefer it over using my sewing machine. Now, the other thing inside of a serger is there are knives. Don't be alarmed, but there are two knives, an upper knife and a lower knife, and they work together to trim the fabric. So actually, when you feed the fabric through here, if it is past the needle plate a little bit, your knives will trim it off, which is another advantage to using a serger, because you will get a nice clean finish where your edges are lined up nicely if you were trimming them with the knife. And depending on what your seam allowance is for your garment and what your serger is set to for seam allowance, you will always have a uniform stitch on there, and that is really advantageous. It just makes your garment look more professional and put together. If you're thinking about getting a serger and you're scared about the knives, don't worry about that. You can disengage the knives, as far as I know, on every machine, so that you can practice without those knives. Just be cautious, because those knives are actually a saving grace, because you don't want your fabric to get caught in your loopers. That's a mess, trust me. Now, when you are trimming with the knives on your serger, there will be tails that will fall off, cut pieces, so you want to have a garbage can kind of at the ready. But again, we're not talking about that too much today. So as for woven fabrics, you can still use your serger. You would just cut out your pattern pieces and then serge around pretty much all of them. A lot of the instructions will say to finish off raw edges before constructing your garment, and then you'll finish your raw edges and then you will construct your garment on your sewing machine so that the edges are nice and finished and they're not going to fray. Alternatively, some patterns will have you construct the seams and then serge the two seam allowances pieces together using a serger or a finishing stitch on your sewing machine. So as for the common questions, let's see. What does a serger do? What does a serger do? Well, it finishes raw ends and it finishes raw edges and it constructs knit garments. When do you use a serger? Well, you use it when you're constructing knit garments or when you're finishing off woven seams so that they don't fray. Why would you use a serger instead of a sewing machine? Well, for me, it's faster. Another thing is you get a lot more stretch in a serged seam compared to a stretched seam on your sewing machine, and you're gonna have less popping of seams. Do I need a serger? No, you don't need a serger. If you are just starting out, I do not recommend a serger. Get to know your sewing machine, get to know those stretch stitches on your sewing machine. If you realize that you're starting to sew more and more knits, yes, invest in a serger if you feel like it is the right thing to do for you, but don't just buy it because everybody in the Facebook group has one. It's not necessary. If you are running a business, a garment sewing business, then yes, I would recommend buying a serger. What serger do you buy? I don't know. I'm gonna link to some Amazon ones that are similar to mine, but again, it's the only one I've used, so I really can't help you out. I have heard the Brothers are really good and the Jukies. There is a Love to Sew podcast all about sergers, so I will link that down below for you guys as well. Can sergers do anything else? Some people think that a serger can do like the 2 lines of stitching on the top of a garment, like a hem. They cannot. That is not what serging is. Serging is specifically for edges because of the knives. Now, here's a little bomb that I'm gonna drop, and I wasn't going to talk about anything more advanced, but I just want to say this so that you don't go out and buy a serger thinking it can do this, but it can't. So it cannot do hems, raw hems. There are different types of hems you can do on a serger, but not what you will be thinking in your mind. Those 2 lines of stitching on the top is a cover stitching, and I will link to my cover stitch video below for you guys to check that out to see more about a cover stitch. But it does not do that. It can do a flat locking, but that is an advanced technique, and it's not something you would do in your everyday usage. So don't buy a serger just because it can flat lock, because chances are your sewing machine has a stitch that can look similar as well. So I just wanted to bring you guys this video so that you can make an informed decision if you want to pursue buying a serger. Some of the things I would recommend looking for in a serger are removable arm, so that you can serge around hems and smaller pieces, neck bands, etc. I do recommend the 4-thread just because I have it and I like it. Other than that, there's not really a lot of difference in ones that I have seen. A big luxury is air threading. Baby Lock, I believe, I don't know if they're the only ones, but they're the only ones that I know of that has air threading. And Baby Lock is kind of the like the machine that everybody lusts after, but they're very expensive. There are entry-level models that you can get, but they probably won't have air threading, so you will have to learn how to thread a serger, and that is something everyone will tell you is so hard, and it is not hard. It just takes some learning and it takes some getting used to, and there are some tricks that you can do to minimize the frustration on that, but it does need to happen. The plus side of threading a serger is it'll make you appreciate your sewing machine more, so that's always a bonus. I would also recommend looking for something with differential feed. We're not going to talk about it today, but it will be helpful for you in your sewing journey. If you are getting a serger, try and make sure it has differential feed. And other than that, sergers are kind of, in my opinion, they're easier to learn than a sewing machine because they can really only do one thing. There are a couple things I want to mention that they can't do that I didn't know when I first started. So you really can't do a corner like you would on a sewing machine. You can't sew and then put your needles down, lift your presser foot, and turn your fabric 90 degrees. Once your fabric is in there, it's in there and it has to stay on that stretch. You can do curves and stuff like that, but you can't do a 90-degree corner or like a sharp pointed corner, but you can't do them in one stretch. So all you do is you just run your fabric off the end and then turn it and then do it again. Another thing that they can't do is you don't backstitch with a serger. So when you get to the end, there are things you need to do to make sure that your seam doesn't unravel. Easy, just takes some learning. But other than that, I mean, there's different needles you get for your serger. There's even different presser feet you can get for a serger. There's different tension, there's different stitch length, just like a regular sewing machine. So don't be afraid. It's not that big of a leap from a sewing machine. If you are confident with your sewing machine, go ahead, look into buying a serger, try and buy secondhand, try out a friend's, go to your local dealer and see if they'll let you practice on one, you know, with the understanding that you might buy there in the future, or just go out and buy one like I did. And if you do have a serger sitting around, especially if it's secondhand, get it tuned up. I didn't have mine tuned up when I first got it, and I didn't really know what to expect or what the stitches were supposed to look like. I knew nothing. I didn't even YouTube it, you guys. I just jumped in and tried it, and that's how I learned best. But there were some downfalls to that as well. But what I will say is once I got it tuned up, it ran so much better. So there's really not that big of a learning curve. It's all about just trying it, getting your tension set right, watch some YouTube videos, ask for help in Facebook groups. There is all kinds of support online. The sewing community is really, really huge, and everyone is willing to help you out because we all want to see you succeed too. And on that note, I have a Facebook group as well, so check that out and join because we'd love to have you. I hope this video was informative to you. If you have any more questions about serging, please leave them in the comment section below and I will answer them as best I can, and maybe do some more videos on like how to set your serger tension and all that kind of thing. But if you have any more videos, more questions related to anything I talked about in this video, leave them down below in those comments and I will get back to you for sure, I promise. And if this video was helpful for you, maybe it pushed you to consider buying a serger, give it a big thumbs up because it really helps me out. It helps out my channel and it lets me know that you liked this video and you want to see more of it. So please do that. And one last thing before you go, hit that subscribe button. There's about 80% of my viewers who are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button. There is a big giveaway announcement coming very, very soon, like very, very soon, and I don't want you to miss it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!